I'm here today as an educational psychologist, but also as a teacher and researcher. I've spent many years learning about and developing relationships with children, with families, and the professionals who work with them. And I'd like to share with you some of the things I've learned. In the early 1980s, when I was a college student, I worked as an early intervention teacher, a teacher assistant actually, and I worked with children who were considered at risk, that were 1 and 2 and 3 years old. Many of them had delays or disabilities. Most were living in families that were struggling to care for them. Families often troubled by abuse, addiction, trauma, and mental illness, and almost always living in poverty. I worked with a talented mentor teacher who guided my interactions with each of the children. Toward the end of my first week, she said, "Kate, I've got some homework for you. I'd like you to go home tonight and choose 2 activities to do with Marcus to help him learn how to follow directions." And she handed me this book called Learning Games. It's chock full of ideas for how to interact with young children using language-intensive, one-on-one, relationship-based interactions. So, I went home that night, returned the next day, and played learning games with Marcus. I never did anything more important than helping Marcus learn how to follow directions. And we really made a difference with Marcus and his family that year. But the thing I didn't know is these learning games I was doing with Marcus were the essential curriculum of the famous Abecedarian study from Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute. That's Abecedarian, and it means one who is just learning. The Abecedarian study started with 100 North Carolina babies born into poverty. Children and their families were randomly assigned to either a group that received no intervention or full-day, year-round, high-quality early care and education from birth to 5 years old. Now, the researchers who developed learning games thought that they would see advances in intelligence almost immediately, but they didn't. The children were toddlers before they saw differences in the groups, but the differences grew. And for those children who received the full-day, relationship-intensive Abecedarian childcare, they continued to experience benefits throughout their lifetime. In middle and high school, the Abecedarian children, now teens, outperformed their non-participating peers on intelligence, reading, and math assessments. By 21 years of age, only 40% of the non-participants were enrolled in 4-year college or employed in skilled labor, compared to almost 70% of the Abecedarians. Keep in mind, this is 16 years after their participation in high-quality childcare, and by 30, they were more likely to have a 4-year degree and hold a job. But I think more impressive than these education and workforce advantages are the advantages for the Abecedarians in health. They have experienced fewer symptoms of depression as adults, and they have better heart health. For example, by 35 years of age, a quarter of the non-participating men had developed metabolic syndrome. This is a serious condition characterized by obesity and high blood pressure. Of the Abecedarian men, none, not one, developed metabolic syndrome. High-quality childcare experienced in the first 5 years of life is associated with education, employment, and health benefits in adulthood. Quite a story, right? And so now there's a sequel to that story. You probably have heard of the achievement gap, in which children who live in poverty are less likely to be ready for kindergarten, less likely to graduate from high school and be at grade level in reading. in which children whose families experience persistent poverty and stress don't develop the social skills they need to do well in school. But we have some good news. Some states and communities have developed programs for young children that will remediate this achievement gap. And they've learned this from the Abecedarian study and others. For example, high-quality preschool programs for 3- and 4-year-olds are one such program. North Carolina's program called NC Pre-K has found that for children who have as little as 1 year of preschool, 1 year, are less likely to need special education services later and do better on their 3rd grade achievement tests. But furthermore, while 1 year of preschool makes a difference, we know from recent research on EduCare, child care beginning in infancy, that for children who start earlier and stay longer, the achievement gap shrinks even more. So, how does playing and learning with a teacher at 2 and 4 years old manifest in better health in adulthood? How do these early childhood programs make a difference bridging the achievement gap for children who live in poverty? Well, we've learned that these programs that produce these kinds of results for young children do some very special things. They create policies and practices that allow for time and space and energy for adults and children to interact one-on-one and intensively in language-rich environments. They make certain that teachers are well-educated and healthy and develop strong bonds with children and families and high expectations. The key that I learned teaching Marcus and that the Abecedarian researchers understood is that learning happens best in the context of healthy relationships. Young children who have healthy relationships with parents, with teachers, and other children learn that they are worthy of learning and education, of good health and well-being. Healthy relationships literally change the brain structure and prepare it to learn. Literally. In order to assemble a healthy child, we need to make sure that children have access to healthy relationships. For early childhood programs, this means providing a space where there's plenty of time for those one-on-one interactions. Whether it's peekaboo, or following directions, or learning your ABCs. Because what really made a difference for Marcus wasn't just learning games, it was his parents and me playing learning games all the time. It was a program that put children and families and their high expectations at the front of everything they were concerned about. We are missing an incredible opportunity. While we have expanded our early childhood programs for children who live in poverty, we have failed to take the right next steps because only a fraction of the children who live in poverty have access to these high-quality programs. We need more programs that put relationships at the center of the curriculum. And we've decided that they're too expensive. But there is evidence that there is a financial return on investment for these early childhood programs. Nobel Prize-winning laureate James Heckman shows with his data that people who participate in these early childhood programs save societal support programs as much as $7 to $10 for every dollar spent. That's $7 to $10. And economist Timothy Bartek provides compelling evidence that high-quality early childhood programs elevate the economic well-being of entire communities. In fact, Bartek contends that high-quality early childhood programs could be the intervention that interrupts the intergenerational cycle of poverty. These programs, these high-quality programs, they're about children and families, but it's not only about them. The benefits, the returns on investment, they're about you, me, everybody. They're about our nations, our towns, and our communities. So, who is responsible for taking the next steps? We are. But if we continue to offer only half of our nation's children the economic stability to be well, we had better be ready to intervene, and early. We had better be ready to offer programs in which educated, healthy teachers offer relationship-based programs so that parents can go to work and to school to improve their circumstances for their child. So, what are the next steps? We can get on the phone. We can let our local, state, and federal legislators know that providing high-quality, relationship-based care and education for our youngest children is our highest priority. We can let them know that we will not rest until every child has the resources they need to be socially, emotionally, physically, and cognitively healthy. To build healthy communities, to build economically vibrant communities, we need healthy babies to grow into healthy community members who can contribute their resources, their voice, their personal capital. We need individuals who have learned from their relationships how to contribute in a democracy. Let's take those right next steps. Thank you.